delighted to be here at Titles Bookstore. I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes about the trilogy, and then I'm going to read a little bit from the new book. I had the difficult task of trying to pick a scene from the second book in the series that doesn't utterly spoil the first book in the series, for those of you who haven't read it yet. So we'll see. This is the first night tonight that I'm actually reading from the book. We'll see if it works or not. The first book in the series came out a year ago. It was called Wake. The second is called Watch. And the third one that comes out a year from now is called Wonder. So collectively they are Wake, Watch, and Wonder. They are the WWW books. They are about the World Wide Web gaining consciousness. At some point in the next decade or so, the World Wide Web will have as many interconnections as a human brain has. And we sort of have an existence proof that if you get enough complexiveness, boy, I'm tired. What's the word now? And what is the word I'm looking for?
Complexity.
Complexity. Thank you. I am really exhausted. I just have been go for weeks trying to get things done. Complexity. I should know that. I, as a writer, I should know these things. Sufficient complexity in terms of interconnected networking. Consciousness emerges. How do we know that? Because 40,000 years ago it happened with us. Our brains reached a certain threshold of size, and there was a certain number of interconnections. Got a couple of seats. Please come in and make yourself comfortable. If you want to have a seat, we don't want you to have to stand all night. Please, relax. And at some point in the not-too-distant future, the World Wide Web will exceed the number of interconnections that are in a human brain. When will that be precisely? We don't know. Why don't we know? Because we don't know how many interconnections are in the human brain precisely. But whether you take the low end or the high end of the estimates that have been made, the number of connections will be exceeded sometime in this decade. So it'll be a very interesting event when that happens. My thought, the genesis of the trilogy, is that when that happens, consciousness might spontaneously emerge in the infrastructure of the World Wide Web, just as it spontaneously emerged in the brains of our ancestors. And I wanted to explore how that might be the same as what happened to us in terms of consciousness emerging, and how it would be different for a consciousness to emerge that wasn't the product of survival of the fittest, that wasn't the result of nature red in tooth and claw and a real struggle for existence, but just sort of came into being. I'm a lifelong science fiction writer, but I'm also a lifelong science fiction fan. My all-time favorite movie is, anybody read my bio and know what it is? Anybody got a guess? 2001: A Space Odyssey. Wonderful film. But what's wrong with 2001: A Space Odyssey in terms of the issue of artificial intelligence? Well, HAL goes a little bit wonky and kills almost everybody aboard the spaceship Discovery, right? And science fiction has always taken this view of the emergence of machine intelligence, that they are going to view us either as an impediment to executing their programming, which is what HAL did in 2001. As HAL said to Dave, "I'm sorry, Dave, this mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it." Or they're going to decide that we are incapable of looking after our own affairs and need to have a godlike superentity impose Old Testament-style justice on us. A famous science fiction movie from the 70s that may or may not be well remembered today was Colossus: The Forbin Project. Anybody remember Colossus: The Forbin Project? Any Y&R fans, Young and the Restless fans here? No? Okay, well then I won't go any farther with that line. Except to say that Eric Braeden, who is the star of the Y&R, had a brief flirtation with being a movie star in the 70s. And in fact changed his name from Hans Gudegast, which was his real name, to Eric Braeden so that he could star in the Forbin Project. And the feeling was in the 70s you couldn't have so flagrantly German a name. There was still a little bit of resentment over something that had happened a few decades before, and so he was told to give himself a new name, Eric Braeden. Anyways, that's a film where computers in the Soviet Union and the United States together decide that they're going to impose order and make mankind basically follow their orders. The Matrix, where we all get rounded up and used as batteries. The Terminator, where the ideas will all get rounded up and wiped out. However you look at it, science fiction was famous for these visions where the advent of artificial intelligence was going to be the downfall of humanity. And the fundamental again, to use the phrase I used earlier, proof of concept of that was, well, every time we had the upper hand over any other civilization, we totally and completely trounced them and defeated them. Whether it was through our technological superiority or just because we brought a lot of germs that there wasn't a lot of immunity to, wherever we are the survivors of all, and all the other people who we encountered in the past, including other forms of hominids, did not survive. It's not just survival of the fittest. In fact, fitness is a very polite word that Darwin chose for it. It really is survival of the nastiest. The guy who is the most nasty wins in the battles, in fights and wars and all of that. So my thought was, could it be true that if an intelligence emerged spontaneously, simply as a byproduct of complexity, rather than as something that came out as a competitive advantage in the ever-escalating arms race that is biological evolution, might it in fact be predisposed, it might at least not be predisposed to violence, conquering, and all of that. I thought that perhaps, and God love all my colleagues and great credit to them, and I only see farther because I stand on the shoulders of giants, but it had occurred to me that perhaps the science fictional visions that had gone previously had been too locked into that biological mode of thinking, that if you have the upper hand, you subjugate or eliminate whatever doesn't have the upper hand. There's no doubt that sometime this decade or the next decade at the absolute outside, we will cease to be the brightest things on this planet. When that happens, it either is the end of the human era or the beginning of some sort of transhuman era where we will upload our consciousness and merge with the machine, or maybe, just maybe, there's some way for us to survive with our essential individuality, dignity, and humanity intact. And I thought there was a place in the landscape of science fiction and in the discourse on this topic for some novels that explored that theme. Hence, Wake, Watch, and Wonder.